The uterine cycle refers to changes within the endometrium, which is the innermost lining of the uterus. The endometrium is subdivided into two layers. There's the functional layer, which lines the lumen of the uterine cavity, and then there's the basal layer, which lies beneath and between the myometrium and the functional zone. The entire cycle of the uterine cycle averages about 28 days. The cycle is divided into three phases: the menstrual phase, proliferative phase, and secretory phases. These three phases, they can be aligned with the ovarian cycle around ovulation. Remember that the uterine cycle speaks only about the events in the uterus, whereas the ovarian cycle talks about the events in the ovary. Yes, the events in the ovarian cycle actually dictate the events of the uterine cycle. The menstrual phase occurs in days 1 through 5 of the uterine cycle, or 1 through 7. During this phase, blood flow to the endometrium is reduced, and it starves the tissues in the functional zone of oxygen and nutrients. As a result, the endometrium starts to deteriorate. It starts to break away from the uterine lining, causing blood and mucus loss. The sloughing off of these tissues and associated blood is called menstruation. During menstruation, the functional zone is reduced, but the basal zone of the endometrium remains intact. Estrogen and progesterone are dropping at this point in the ovarian cycle. It's this drop in progesterone that triggers spasms in the coiled arteries, causing menstrual cramps, which can sometimes be so debilitating in the first few days of the menstrual phase. As these two hormones continue to drop during the menstrual phase, so does body temperature. The proliferative phase is days 6 through 13 or 14. Estrogens induce all the changes throughout this phase. During this phase of the uterine cycle, estrogen is rising as follicles in the ovary are growing. Mitosis is creating new cells in the functional zone, and estrogen is inserting receptors for progesterone into the endometrial cells. The end of the proliferative phase corresponds with ovulation, after which progesterone's going to rule the uterine cycle. The major event is to reestablish the functional zone lost during menstruation via mitosis. The word proliferation is often used to refer to cells that are doing lots of mitosis. Blood vessels grow back into the functional zone, creating those coiled arteries, and endometrial glands appear, which produce a very thick mucus containing the starch glycogen. The secretory phase is days 15 through 28 of the uterine cycle. This last and longest phase covers about 14 days, and it corresponds roughly with the luteal phase of the ovarian cycle. Progesterone is very high in this phase, and it spends its time inserting receptors for estrogen into the endometrial tissue. Think of this phase from the uterus's point of view. The uterus knows that an ovum has been ovulated, and the uterus is hopeful that there's been a copulatory event to bring spermatozoa to the uterine tubes. The uterus wants to prepare for implantation of the zygote, and progesterone helps it do that. More coiled arteries spring up to deliver more blood to the endometrium. The endometrial glands get bigger and they start producing more mucus. The glycogen in that mucus on the endometrial glands, it serves to nourish the developing embryo if implanted. So in general, the endometrial layer is thickening its functional zone with blood and mucus, getting ready for a hopeful implantation. If no implantation occurs, the corpus luteum in the ovary dies, estrogen and progesterone fall, and the gonadotropin releasing hormone in the hypothalamus is released from inhibition to start the cycle over again.